I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and recently I did a video called 10 Tips to Get Rid of Your Games. And while generally well received, there were a bunch of people who were like, oh, I thought you meant like 10 ways to get your games out of the house, to sell them, to trade them, to gift them, things like that, not 10 ways to convince yourself to get rid of games that you're on the fence about whether you should or shouldn't get rid of. And honestly, my bad. I can see how that title was confusing. And so today, we have 10 tips on how to get rid of your games. I haven't figured out what the title of the video is going to be because I need to make it different from the last one, but honestly that title kind of fits. 10 ways to sell, trade, gift your games. We're going to talk about that today. But also, I'm going to link down below one of the last times I did a video like this because I did a full kind of walkthrough of not just where, but how to sell your game. Like how to actually go through the process of listing it on Facebook Marketplace, on eBay, on things like that, that I do think is very helpful. To a lot of people, you're already doing this, you already know how to do this. This video might not be necessary for you because you've already been selling your games yourselves for a while. And for a lot of others, these basic ways to get started can be very helpful, and so that's this video. And some of these options will include things like bringing your games to local meetups, and things like that. It's helpful to have a board game bag, which is a good, incredibly natural segue to the channel sponsor, Allplay. Allplay is a site where you can get a number of things from the shelves behind me, from various games, from not just Allplay, but a variety of publishers they work with, and also Allplay bags. They have regular bags you can hold, you can put them on your back like a backpack. They also have bags with like wheels, so it's almost like a carry-on luggage kind of situation. They are fantastic. They are my go-to bag of choice, and I have tried a lot of bags. I've tried like 4 or 5 different companies worth of bags over the years, and Allplay is consistently the one I come back to. But with that, let's go ahead and talk about 10 methods of how to sell, gift, trade your games. I will be ranking these in order from least to most favorite. Of my personal favorite is going to be number 1. We're going to work our way down through them, and I'll talk through the pros and cons of each of these. Starting off with number 1, which number 1 is not even my, well, number 10 I guess, we're counting down. Starting off with number 10, and number 10 is not even necessarily my least favorite, but it is a little tangential. So we're going to put it at number 10 anyway. And that's giving them away to things like libraries, youth clubs, possibly Goodwill, but honestly I feel less good about that personally. I'm all for giving to Goodwill. Clothes, things like that, amazing. Games, I find most games that you give to Goodwill, you're either getting lucky that someone who can benefit from that game finds that game. That's option 1. Or you're getting someone who can't benefit from the game as much, may think it's a great game because it looks fun, not realizing that they're about to read a 30-page rulebook and they're not going to do that. And the last option is people who go to Goodwill to find those great deals. Oh my gosh, I found Twilight Imperium 4 at Goodwill for $7. And while I love that, that's not necessarily the best intended. It's fine. I love it. I've done it myself. I've searched for it, but I don't find it's the best feel-good aspect. So Goodwill is like the last one on this list over here. Libraries, youth groups, things like that are going to be the better way to get rid of your games in a way that you're not getting anything back for it, but you are getting that feel-good aspect of it could go to someone who can benefit from it. I will say, going back to that person who didn't expect a 20-page rulebook, make sure to match up the games you're giving to the intended recipients. So for example, if you're doing a library, make sure you're talking to the librarians. Do they already have a games program? Are your games in line with those games? Do they want to start a games program? Make sure you're not giving them Twilight Imperium 4 unless there's an intended audience who can benefit from Twilight Imperium 4. Or maybe choose some of the lighter games you have that honestly sell for less. Like if your goal is to sell your games, very often lighter, more accessible games sell for less money. So that's a good way to give those games to people who can benefit more from those games. And honestly, even here, Goodwill could be good here. If you're giving away a game that has a 3-page rulebook, that's amazing. Give it to Goodwill. That's more. Now 2 out of those 3 groups are finding it in a good place where they can benefit from it. So number 1, or number 10, counting down, is libraries, youth groups, Goodwill a little bit, things like that. Number 9, Noble Knight Games. Noble Knight Games buys used games in bulk. In fact, fun fact for those who don't already know, Board Game Co., this channel over here, I started by doing used games for years. In 2014, I guess? In 2014, I started Board Game Co., and I started buying and selling used games. I along with Noble Knight, were the biggest buying of used games out there in the general space. There's a lot of other stores that do it on a smaller scale, but at the time, it was myself, Board Game Co., and Noble Knight. Board Game Co. closed down a while ago, in 2022, because I like doing YouTube a whole lot more than dealing with buying and selling games. But Noble Knight still does this, so if you want to sell your games to Noble Knight, then go ahead, email them your list of games, they will give you an offer, and they will buy your games. This is number 9, because you will get the least amount of money for your games. This is no shade on Noble Knight. Like, if you've ever sold games to Board Game Co., that's part of the process. When you're selling a batch of games in bulk to someone who needs to sell those games and cover shipping from you and cover shipping to the next person, In general, it's going to be hard to make a ton of money on them, which means you're going to get very little money. I'd say maybe a quarter of the value of what your games are worth is a good estimate. That just allows them for the margins of things going wrong with the games, of issues, of the shipping costs, of all of that, and of course the profit aspect. So it's number 9 on this list because while it is one of the easiest ways to get rid of a ton of games in bulk, you are getting pennies on the dollar for them. I'll also throw out over here, if you don't want to ship your games, half-price books will also do things like that, but I find you're getting even less than that from half-price books. Like I would, and there might be other stores as well, but I would rather give my games to a library, youth group, friends, any of that stuff over, spoiler, things coming up, I guess, over half-price books. But throwing out there's an option. If you want to get at least something for it, you can get something from half-price books for a bunch of games. But Noble Knight is going to be number 9. That's going to be number 9, which I said 3 times now. Number 8. Number 8 is a bulk listing, and this is specifically segregated. We'll have more coming down later, but number 8 is a bulk listing on Craigslist, local Facebook groups, dedicated board game groups, anywhere where you can kind of make a bulk listing for a bunch of your games at an incredibly easy price. This also could work for eBay. I find eBay is less useful for this kind of thing. I would say Craigslist and local Facebook groups or board game Facebook groups are usually, or just Facebook Marketplace in general, that will show local people. I find that's the best way to do that. So a bulk listing, you take 15 games, and you say, boom, the market value for these games, market value being defined, is what they generally go for used. So let's say those games generally go for 15 games. Let's assume $25 per game. It varies. Let's assume $30 per game because it's easier. That's going to be $450, right? So $450 is what they would go for on average, and you have to have specific games. I'm just making the math easy. So if these games would go for $450, and what you do is you sit there and say, hey, I'm selling all these games for $350, take it all. It's all yours. I'm not individually negotiating them. It's just $350 for all of it. Or maybe $300, or maybe $275, or $250. Basically, there's a lot of tiers of what you can offer that will give you a bulk listing with minimal effort while getting you much more than you would from Noble Knight Games. Again, I'm not here to tank Noble Knight. This would apply to Board Game Co. as well. But basically, once you're willing to do a bulk listing, there's different tiers. There's the individual breakdown of each item, packaging and shipping each thing. Noble Knight is the easiest. You just email them, you'll get a quote back, and you're done. You don't have to hunt for a buyer. This one's kind of a middle tier. You are getting less money than you would by selling them individually. You are getting more money than you would by selling them for Noble Knight, but it's also slightly more effort than Noble Knight because you can't guarantee who's interested in those games. You still have to find somebody who is interested in those 15 games at a good discount, but they might have 4 of them and they might not want 2 of them. So you are still kind of playing a targeted game of a bulk listing for less money, for less effort, but there's still a little bit of a finding aspect. But in general, being willing to sell a bunch of games for a lower price point is a good halfway point between Noble Knight and the individual aspect of listing them all individually. And you can try this out easily. You don't have to go to a dedicated Facebook group. Go to Facebook Marketplace, list your 15 games, choose a price point that feels like a very good deal. Not like they're saving $5 on $450 worth of games. That's not the place to do this. But like $450 worth of games, boom, $300. You're getting a third off the price point. You will likely find someone. People are always interested in good deals, and people love finding that. People are like, oh my gosh, like, sure, 15 games. I owned one of them already. I didn't want these 2, but look at the price point I got these games for. It is worth trying if you really, and this is also, we're going to get further down the list soon of all the ways to sell your games individually. If you've been holding on to 200 games because you haven't sold them individually yet, just try this. Try this with 15 of them. See how it goes. See how quickly you can go from hoarding games in your back closet somewhere to actually having cash in hand and not playing the dream of one day I'll sell them for how much they're worth, even as the value goes slowly down over time. Some games the value goes up. Number 7. Number 7 is going to be local game stores, local store events, and or local store consignment programs. I'm kind of putting these two together because your local store will vary. But check out to your local store. Literally, call them up. Call up your local game store and say, hey, I have a bunch of games that I like to sell. Do you either buy them yourself? Do you run store events where people can sell their games and, like, you know, get store credit or something like that? Like, for example, one of the stores near me, what they do is they'll kind of run a store event where they'll sell all your games and you get the full value, but you get it as store credit. So they kind of have this giant game day sale where everyone can buy stuff, and they're taking all this stuff. They're taking an actual money from people, and you get the full value, but they did it as store credit. It's a brilliant way to kind of give people like the full value of their dollar, while also they're making sales off it at the same time. It's a brilliant event kind of situation. And honestly, your game store might be interested. pitch that exact idea to your game store. Say, hey, by the way, I was watching this guy on YouTube, terrible channel, but he had this one good video, and he said his game store does this. Is that something you'd be interested in considering? Because I think it's a really good win-win. Some people will say, thank you very much, I have too much stuff to do, goodbye. Others will say, you know what, I've never considered it. Maybe that is a good idea. Because again, like, it's a single game day. Tons of money comes in, they get guaranteed sales, and they also kind of get an upfront loan because of store credit, and you turn around and you turn all your games into a bunch of stuff that you can turn around and turn to buy the newest games you want, granted at that game store. So whether it's a store consignment event, whether it's or the last one was consignments, stores often do consignment sales as well, where they'll take your games, they won't give you a thing for them, but they will sell them, and then you'll get 75% of it, they'll get 25%, or some portion, maybe it's 50-50, whatever it is, but it's no risk on their part because they're not giving you money up front, they're just selling the game for you, but they're going to take a portion of that whenever it does sell. So lots of stores do different things, from buying your games directly, to running different kinds of events, to running game consignment programs. Call your local game store, and or 2 or 3 of them if you have more than one in the area. Find out what opportunity they do. They can often be very, very helpful towards being able to get rid of your games in a somewhat less hassle than some of the other ways that we're going to come down to soon. Number 6, convention sales or events or whatnot. This one's a little bit lower only because I think it depends on which convention you have access to. Are you driving there? Are you flying? If you're flying, it's going to be much harder to benefit from this. But if you have conventions within driving distance, whether it's Origins, Gen Con, PAX Unplugged, your local random convention, wherever it is, many conventions do offer the opportunity where they have like a day or time, like a 2-hour event where people can sell their games. This is similar to doing, a local game store event, but it's around a convention instead, which means a much bigger audience is already there. People love those deals. People go to PAX Unplugged and they're like lining up so they can get the best deals on those tables. Price your games accordingly. I talk more about pricing your games in that other video that I'll link down below. But basically, you can sell games at conventions. Generally more helpful if it's driving distance. Once you're paying or for a giant carry-on, it changes the whole math of it, unless you have a carry-on for free anyway. Not carry-on, big luggage or whatever. But figure out the conventions that you go to, or maybe that you might be open to going to. Similar to a local game store, you might have a local convention that you've never considered going to, and this might be a good reason to do so, to kind of double up on seeing what the convention scene is like, and also selling a whole chunk of your games. So do your research on the various conventions around you, local or otherwise, and then sell your games at local conventions. Number 5, or at conventions in general. Number 5, Board Game Geek Marketplace. This one used to be much higher for me, but over the years, Board Game Geek has changed the way they manage the marketplace, but they still do have a marketplace up there where you can list your games and then engage with the seller and deal with that back and forth, and engage with the buyer and deal with that back and forth and sell your game. It's a great place to put your game where tons of people check on a regular basis. It is a listing that is up there, though, that if you do forget to manage them, one day somebody's going to buy a game that you didn't sell. I don't think it's super active in the sense that you're guaranteed to get sales right away by any means, but if you do have 50 games, going through the 5 to 10 minutes per game to list your game on Board Game Geek, honestly, it's less than 5 minutes. Well, the first one's going to take you 10 minutes. The second one's going to take you 6 minutes. The third one's going to take you 2 minutes, and it's going to be like every 2 minutes you can list a game, basically. It's pretty quick to actually go through the process of listing a game once you know what you're doing there. But that said, once you do list them, you do need to make sure to be up to date on your listings, removing them if you are selling those games through other means. Granted, it's not a fixed sale, meaning someone might message you saying, is this game available? And you'll be like, oh no, it's not, time to delete that. So there is lower risk on that. Again, I find BGG Marketplace is less active than it used to be back in the, 3-4 years ago is when they made a big change to the way it works. But it still is a great place. That costs you nothing. You put it up and you get a ton of eyeballs on your game in theory. Just update your prices here and there, or your policies. Make sure to put a little description into how you work. Do you bundle shipping? Tell people, hey, check out my other games. $5 off every other game that you buy from me. That's a great way to convince people to go browse your list and buy a bunch of stuff, and you're still getting close to maximum value from them. Obviously, if you're doing that, make sure if you have a $7 listing, do the math, whatever it is. Figure out the term. It's $5 off. 5% off, 10% off any other game you buy from me. Something like that. Keep it simple, keep it stupid, but you can list your games on Board Game Geek Marketplace. Number 4, group bartering. Now this one's a little nuanced, and I debated how to include this here, but I have benefited from this myself, and I love it if you can get it set up. Whether this is your WhatsApp board game friend group, whether this is a local small Discord that you're in, whatever kind of group system you have around your friends, whether local or not, and there's going to be your local groups and there's not, set up a group around your friends, and this one can be done how you want. You could either sell to your friends at a great price. That's a great way to do it, by the way. If you have a $40 game, and going back to that earlier thing where I said, hey, sometimes you can sell to Noble Knight and you can get $10 for your $40 game. Or you could do a bulk listing and get $27 to $30 for your $40 game on average. But you could also do the exact same thing with your friends. You could be like, hey, Max, I know you are interested in this game. I'm selling, or just not Max specifically, anyone. By the way, guys, I'm selling these games. I'll sell them for like, 2/3 of the value, the price, whatever it is, anything you want. I just figure I'll talk to you guys first, get them out there first to anyone who wants them, and then from there, I'll go ahead and, list them myself actually. But it's like, if any of my friends can benefit from it at a lower price point, or even 50% off, or also free. This is one where it does depend on your dynamics, but like I've been involved in groups in the past where people just offer their games to the group. And it became this unanimous thing where it kind of ended up as just trading, but just not like with a I give this, you give that. It was like, guys, I'm getting rid of these 10 games. Pay shipping, or if you're local, just come pick them up. Who wants these games before I sell them? And then people would pick them. And we were all great about it. And it does require having a good group. It wasn't a bunch of people trying to take a bunch of games so they can sell them themselves because they're worth money. Rather, it was like, I will take this in the spirit that it is offered. 10 games are being offered up. I only particularly care about one, and I'm kind of interested in the other, and I would say things like that, or other people would say things like that. Hey, I'd love game X. Also, if no one else claims game Y, I'd be interested in that. That one kind of more of a passing of interest, so like, if someone else wants it, you take it first. Treat it in the spirit that it's intended, and you can build up a great group of people that just cycle games amongst each other. It is not selling games, but it is a great way to turn the games that you are not keeping yourself into feel goods, into either lower price sales, feel good moments, building that bond of friendship, and also getting things back. Again, if you have a good group, most of the people in the group will end up doing the same thing. You'll end up having, I give a game today, someone else giving other games tomorrow. It can work beautifully if done right. It is one of my favorite things. The only reason it's not lower down the list is because it does involve some social dynamics, some possibly talking to each other. It's a little more work to get off the ground and to have that right mindset. But if you can get this going, it is possibly my favorite method to cycle games around a group of people. Number 3, Board Game Exchange. Board Game Exchange, BGX, that's going to be a Facebook group. It's under the umbrella of Board Game Revolution, but it's a dedicated Facebook group where you can sell your games. If you watched my other video that I linked down below, where I go through the process of selling a game, I've very effectively been able to sell my games there in the past. I don't use it as often nowadays, only because I don't want, because I'm a channel and I'm Alex and Board Game Co and all that, I don't want every single time I post something to be like, have my name attached to what games I am or am not getting rid of, whatever it is. But I used to use it a ton, and I've thoroughly benefited from it, and I found it to be one of the better ways to be able to get rid of your games. Word of advice, if you will, I do find that in groups like that, especially when it's not a fixed listing where it can just sit there forever, like if you're listing your game on BGG Marketplace, you can list it at a relatively reasonable market price, and either it sells or it doesn't, but the listing's kind of there. They can sink to the bottom, but it's just present. But on something like Board Game Exchange, or on any Facebook group marketplace, I do find the best way to sell things is to be willing to take $5 less, or let's say 15% less than the game is worth. That is the fastest way to be able to sell things. $40 game, don't sell for $40, sell it for $30 to $35. You'll still get more than that 2/3 aspect, any of these other options, but if you're willing to sell it for a little bit less so that it's a good deal, you will have people picking up on it a lot faster. And especially if you offer multiple things. Again, shipping is one of the killers of selling games, so you want to be able to list multiple things at once and tell people that same aspect. Shipping is going to be one flat price. That's a $10 flat rate shipping, period, full stop, or whatever it is. I'll charge to your location, but figure out the way to do it that incentivizes others to buy a bunch of things from you, because honestly, buying a single game, usually, even if you offer some sort of discount, it's going to be cheaper to buy from their game store or Amazon or things like that. It's when people buy in bulk that they can get the best kind of win-win, where you get a good sale, they actually get real savings, but offer it at a good price on those markets. And obviously, you can do local as well. Local options are totally fine, but Board Game Exchange specifically is one of the bigger Facebook buying and selling groups that is not restricted to local only. Number 2 is eBay. I still use eBay. Now, eBay does suck because eBay does take a big chunk of your of how much you sell it for. Between PayPal commissions and eBay commissions, you are losing 15%-ish of whatever you sell it for. Plus, shipping's going to cut into things as well. Obviously, you can charge full shipping, but you have to take that into account as far as is it worth it at that point? Because now your $40 game that goes for $50 brand new. If you sell it for $40 and you charge shipping, nobody's going to buy it. You have to sell it for like $35 and then charge $10 shipping at best, and that's only $5 off, and they're getting a used game. You really have to take a a hit on the games, and it's a little harder to build up those kind of bulk transactions that you can do in other methods. But I do find that eBay set it and forget it is still one of the most consistent ways to just get it in, not have to deal with negotiating and bartering, because negotiating and bartering can be a lot of fun, but it also can be an absolute drain when somebody sits there and spends 10 minutes trying to ask for pictures, get $2 off the price, and then just disappears into the nether, which happens a lot on other platforms. I find on eBay it doesn't quite happen nearly as much, if at all. I had like one nightmare buyer one time, but like most of the time, eBay sales are the easiest to deal with the downside that you are taking a big hit on the amount that you're doing, and it's harder to set up bulk transactions as easily or efficiently. Again, you could just do a bulk listing, but it's just I find those are not as effective on eBay. But definitely try it. Try any of these options or any combinations of them. But I will say, eBay is still one of my favorite places to list things, knowing the downsides going in. And then number one is my absolute favorite way. It's the thing that started Board Game Co. Like, not the, well, the channel in theory, because it started Board Game Co. the operation, and it turned into the Board Game Co. the channel. Everything I do nowadays is because of this number one, and it's my favorite way to actually engage with getting rid of your games. Trade them. Specifically on Board Game Geek. I will say, by the way, I didn't mention Reddit throughout this entire video. I personally haven't really used Reddit. It is a place where you can buy, sell, and trade games. I'm not a big Reddit user, so I always find it a little bit more frustrating to deal with, but it is something worth mentioning. But trade your games, and Board Game Geek is where I do this. You can go through Board Game Geek and you can set up board game trades. You can set up your collection, what you want, what you have. This is something that I probably should do a full dedicated guide on this at some point. I've talked about this in the past on a video of like 5 features about BGG you might not know about. I think I talked about it in that video. I'll link to that down below if I did. I talked about it in other things, but setting up your collection on Board Game Geek of what you want, what you have, and then engaging in the trading ecosystem, ideally doing bulk trades. Again, shipping is the biggest enemy to getting value out of whatever you swap out, but if you can do bulk trades, setting up 3 or 4 games for 3 or 4 games, it is one of the best ways to turn the games you have into other games that you want, and because people aren't really paying money outside of shipping, it reduces a lot of the friction of people having to have money, and also the costs of the percentages that are taken on that. I find trading games in general, specifically Board Game Geek's ecosystem, is one of the absolute best ways to turn your games into value at a low friction and have multiple parties very happy if they do so. I will try. I will try to do a full video. If I haven't already, I'm going to look into it. I'm going to try to do a full video on how to best engage in the trading ecosystem on BGG, because I think it's worth it. But that's not today's video. Today we just have the top 10 and my favorites trading. I'll try to do a full video later. In any case, I hope these tips were helpful for you. I hope you found any of these options as far as best ways to get rid of your games. Again, I need to figure out the title so it's not confusing. The best ways to get rid of your games. Here are 10 options. I have used most, if not all of these options at different ways and different points. I've given you my order of preference on these and the whys. I hope it is helpful. This is a hobby full of getting a lot of games, but then part of that process is getting rid of those games when some of them, and many of them, frankly, inevitably don't work out for you, whether short-term or long-term. Sometimes you play a game, you want to get rid of it the next day. Other times you've had it in your collection for 3 years and it's time to move on. Whichever it is, finding a way to cycle those efficiently so that we can maximize the enjoyment amongst all the participants of the hobby and minimize the waste. Hopefully no one's throwing games out. That would be that's heartbreaking. Like, I've done it with like bad games that no one wants, but it's very infrequent. That would be terrible. Don't throw games out. But in any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you found this helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.